When it comes to Cuphead, I'll admit that I didn't think too much about it at first. I didn't keep up with news about this game when it was first unveiled. I didn't twiddle my thumbs in anticipation of when this game would release. Hell, I'm pretty sure I picked up this game a year after it launched on Steam. But I will say this about Cuphead. I remember seeing demo gameplay of a boss fight against a giant green dragon in the sky, and the reason why that memory stuck with me when I was indifferent toward Cuphead back then was because of one key factor. It was because of its instantly recognizable presentation. Cuphead is an extraordinarily unique video game developed by first-time Canadian indie game developer Studio NDHR, consisting of brothers Chad and Jared Mollenhauer. Oh, that's what the NDHR stands for. Developed with the Unity game engine, work on Cuphead first began in 2010. It was first revealed in E3 2014, garnering immediate audience response because of its faithfully vintage art style. It didn't officially release until September 2017 on PC and Xbox One, and then has since been ported to macOS in 2018, because Apple's, har, and Nintendo Switch in 2019. Man, the Nintendo Switch gets a lot of good ports, and Cuphead is a surprise because it was originally an Xbox exclusive. Anyway, if you're doing the math, it basically took 7 years for this game to finally go on sale, and the reason for that should be obvious in its art style and interwoven gameplay. Upon first glance, Cuphead's art style appears to borrow elements from 1930s Fleischer and Walt Disney animations. Actually, borrow is probably not the right word. It's more like if Studio NDHR found the head of Walt Disney, digitized his brain, and then asked him to make a video game in the 2010s. And the reason I say that is because the art style of this game, and the technical work needed to make it work in a game of this genre, is nothing short of mesmeric. This isn't a cheap attempt to pay homage to an important time period in animation history. It's as if a time capsule was unearthed from the past and utilized as a catalyst in the development of Cuphead. Every single frame and aspect of this game is hand-drawn meticulously and faithfully to transport you over 80 years into the past. Hand-drawn games do exist, so it's not like Cuphead is the first of its kind in that department. Games like Dragon Slayer are completely hand-drawn. Other games have hand-drawn backgrounds and character animations as well, but Cuphead sets the benchmark by going 100% in its development. The backgrounds are hand-drawn and seldom static. There's often something going on behind the main action. Every single character in this game has dozens or even hundreds of frames of animation, which all have to connect and flow with one another depending on the stimulus. Projectiles, particle effects, menus, speech bubbles with dialogue, cutscenes, intro cards to boss battles. Literally everything about this game belongs in the time period that it represents. Even the frame rate reflects this, with the gameplay running at a rock-solid 60 frames per second, but the animation running at 24 frames per second, exactly like a vintage film projector would. If you've ever played a Contra or Metal Slug game, then the gameplay of Cuphead should be pretty recognizable. At its core, Cuphead is a fast-paced boss rush run-and-gun game with a difficulty to match. This game is not easy. The art style may make you beg to differ, but it's probably one of the most difficult video games of the 2010s that you'll play. As far as controls go, they're sharp and responsive as they should be, with the option of playing on keyboard or controller. Remember, this is the Steam version I'm reviewing. From my personal experience, I found a PS4 controller hooked up to my PC to work best when playing Cuphead. How about that? Playing a Microsoft game released on Steam with a controller made by Sony. You're able to customize your button layouts too, so the game is flexible to your preferred playstyle. And at the beginning of the game, there's a tutorial level that I would recommend spending some time in to familiarize yourself with the controls. Running, dashing, shooting, switching weapons, special attacks, parrying. Cuphead's moveset is Spartan, yet sufficient. And as long as you can breeze through the tutorial level, then you've got a firm grasp of what this game will throw your way. Shots fucking fired. I want his job. The bosses in Cuphead are as diverse as they are difficult. I will guarantee that first-time players will die at least a few hundred times before beating the game. Don't be afraid to reset either. There's no penalty for doing so, and you're thrust right back into the action in a couple of seconds. And given the pattern recognition and muscle memory nature of Cuphead, quick restarts are vital. Yes, Cuphead is infamously difficult, Dark Souls level of difficult, but it's a fair kind of difficult. The kind of difficult that doesn't trample you with RNG, luck, glitches, prolonged tedium, or monotony. It's quick, and depending on how well you learn from your failures, mostly painless. Your controller will thank you for that. Remember, it's your good friend. Don't beat the devil out of it. Beat the devil with it. Also, in between these boss battles are a grand total of 6 run-and-gun levels. The run-and-gun levels are where you go from point A to point B, picking up coins and staying alive through any means necessary. The coins that you pick up can be used at Pork Brian's Emporium to buy new weapons and charms that will augment your character. Be warned though that there are a limited number of coins that you can get, so you can't buy everything at the shop. I would recommend buying all of the weapons first and foremost. The Spreader, Roundabout, Chaser, Lobber, and Charger. You begin with the Pea Shooter by default. They each have their pros and cons and, depending on which boss you use them on, can make or break a fight for you. They each have their own EX attack too, at the price of 1 card in your super meter gauge. There are 6 charms in all too: Smoke Bomb, Coffee, Whetstone, Pea Sugar, 1 Heart, and 2 Heart. They each grant different abilities to your character, from being invulnerable in the middle of dashing, to incrementally charging your super meter, to automatically parrying once after jumping or even attacking while parrying, or giving you an extra hit point or 2 at the expense of losing some attack power. Which one you choose to use is up to you. Personally, I prioritize the Smoke Bomb because having some invincibility frames does give you an edge in a difficult game, but you'll want to swap it for something else, like Coffee when doing airplane battles. Lastly, there are 3 Mausoleum stages in total. Each one has you parrying ghosts that are trying to home in on a chalice in the center of the stage. These stages are quite helpful in improving your parrying skills if you feel inadequate in using it. And you will want to work on your parrying because each successful parry nets you 1 card to your super meter. 5 total cards allow you to use 1 of 3 equipped super arts. All 3 super arts are acquired in these mausoleums. One makes you shoot a kettle kamehameha, another one makes you invincible for 5 seconds, and the third radically increases your attack power. I just stuck with the first one for 95% of the game. Just like the graphics, the soundtrack and sound design of this game is taken from the past, sans the primitive means of replaying said sounds. The CUPHEAD original soundtrack, composed by Christopher Madigan, contains almost 3 hours of high-quality music that wouldn't feel out of place in a vintage cartoon. Genres include jazz, ragtime, big band, piano, tap dancing, and even a barbershop quartet for the introduction of this game. This, alongside King Dice's titular theme, are some of the few lyrical tracks in CUPHEAD. Every single boss and run-and-gun stage has their own signature theme, further differentiating them from each other. The music itself delightfully flares when you pull off a super art, or careens off of a cliff when you die in combat. It all reinforces the near-centennial gateway to the past. I'll admit that, when I first played through this game, the boss themes didn't stick with me at first. They seemed to blend into one another, and I had difficulty associating most boss themes with their respective bosses. Emphasis on most, because I found that the harder bosses are the ones that you'll have their songs stick into your mind better. Because you'll begin to gauge your progress against the boss through the music. Overall, it's a delight to listen to, and perfectly complements itself into the world of CUPHEAD in the same way that Cream and Sugar do to Coffee. CUPHEAD has a story in much the same way that a Super Mario game has a story, in that it exists, but it's far from the main focus of the game. I don't think it warrants a spoiler warning, because it's simplistic and exists to justify the superior gameplay. First and foremost, CUPHEAD presents its story to you with a book.
Oh no, not the book. How many have seen opening the book before?
It introduces the titular character CUPHEAD and his blue brother Mugman, gambling in the Devil's Casino. I think they're too young to gamble personally, probably too young to drink alcohol as well. And speaking of drinking, what exactly are they drinking from their heads? It's believed that it's their souls, but it just looks like autofill. Anyway, both brothers are on a hot streak at the craps table, which draws in the attention of the casino's owner, the devil himself. He offers them all of the loot in his casino if they win one more round, or relinquish their souls if they lose. Naturally, CUPHEAD and Mugman lose, rolling snake eyes. You know, it would have been a very short game if they won. Pretty sure the devil gave them loaded dice to have them lose on purpose. I mean, he appears to have them some dice in the cutscene.
Your dice are loaded! What? You gave me loaded dice?
Fucking swindler. Gonna beat the devil out of him at the end. Anyway, Cuphead and Mugman beg for an alternative. The devil agrees by having the two of them hunt down his runaway debtors and collect their souls for him in the form of soul contracts. Petrified and desperate, Cuphead and Mugman go to the Elder Kettle for advice. He is a parental, mentor, caretaker figure to them, and is also responsible for giving them the ability to fingerbang. How do they masturbate then? To make a short story shorter, he gives you the default pea shooter, tells you that your debtor friends will turn hostile when they're confronted to pay off their soul debt, and to basically play along for now. Several grueling boss fights, running gun stages, and mausoleum stages later, you trek through 3 Inkwell Isles and make your way to Inkwell Hell. In between that though, both the forces of good and evil acknowledge your growing strength. The Elder Kettle trusts that you'll do the right thing in the right moment, and the devil contemplates making pawns out of Cuphead and Mugman. When you reach Inkwell Hell, you actually fight King Dice first, because he lost a bet on your ability to get this far, and after beating him, but before fighting the devil, you're given a choice to hand over the soul contracts or not. If you choose no, and subsequently kick his furry ass, then Cuphead and Mugman will burn the soul contracts they've acquired, thus liberating the debtors from the devil and having both Cuphead and Mugman celebrated as heroes.
Our king is a great! Vive la revolution!
But if you choose yes, then you become eternal servants to the devil. Cuphead and Mugman turn into abominations. The credits will roll, and the barbershop quartet music at the title screen will play backwards. There's no game-changing penalty to this. It's just fun to see this option. Rather than break down Cuphead and Mugman as characters, I'm just going to break down each and every boss character in this game instead. They're the stars of this game, the characters that you're going to remember the most, shout at the most, maybe even break a controller at the most.
Perfect!
Why focus on the antagonists instead of the protagonists? I'll keep it simple. Cuphead and Mugman? They're like the Super Mario Bros, only they die. A lot. Like in a cruel Super Mario Maker level. The Elder Kettle? Already described them in 3 words earlier. And the legendary Chalice? Princess Peach. Well, until we get to the delicious last course. You know how the World Health Organization recommends that you eat at least 5 fruits and vegetables a day? Well, there are 3 right here. You start off with Motato the Potato, who spits out dirt and the occasional worm that you can parry. He's followed by Weepy the Onion, a poor fellow who always cries because he's an onion. Lastly, we have Psy-Carrot, a carrot with 3 eyes that possesses ESP. Still not as many eyes as Motato, but enough to hurt when you shoot him there. The slime from Dragon Quest guest stars in Cuphead. Cupile Grande's shtick is that he basically hops across the battlefield, occasionally throwing a punch your way that you can just duck underneath. Don't get crushed by his blue rotundity, and you'll kill him soon enough. Then he'll try to posthumously kill you via a tombstone pile driver. Helleberg is your first airplane battle, and a reasonably tough opponent on the first Inkwell Island. She'll literally laugh at your tiny propeller, but she still tries to blow you regardless. She's weird like that. Shoot her enough times until she's coated like a birthday cake, and she'll try to use the power of the stars to shoot you out of the sky. When that doesn't work for her, she'll resort to mooning you and sending out UFOs to anally probe you. She'll stop laughing at you when you unload at her enough. Like Flowey from Undertale, Cagney Carnation starts off sweet and unassuming for the first few seconds, before showing off those thorns that roses are famous for. a fight that can become a pain if you let his seeds grow and strike back. You must not get tunnel vision and read his attack patterns carefully. He's the first boss that fills the screen with his pollen, and you only get tougher from here. Eventually, he'll use Frenzy Plant on you, so keep using Bounce and you'll exterminate this stubborn weed. Ribi Ryu and Ken Croaks go Street Fighter on your porcelain posterior. Both martial artist amphibians unleash their full arsenal of famous moves on you in an attempt to break you like those cars in between matches. They unleash Hadoukens, Tatsumaki Senpukyakus, Moeru Konshus, and when those fail, they'll resort to the forbidden Tomogui Henkan to become what Konami has shamelessly been doing to their IPs. Hit the lever, avoid the coins, and show them why Capcom is superior to Konami in every way. When you mix the witch from the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale with Constance from Monster House, you get a boss fight with sugar, spice, and nothing nice. Before you take the fight to Baroness von Bonbon, you have to defeat 3 of her 5 minions: waffles, candy corn, a gumball machine, a jawbreaker, or a cupcake. After that, she'll chase you down with her apparent mobile home, tossing her airheads at you. Just keep shooting her right in the milk duds until she breaks like a Kit Kat bar. So this is why people hate clowns. This Pennywise knockoff has 4 phases to his boss fight. Pepe the Clown begins by cramming only 1 clown in a car as he attempts to run you over. Then he starts to make balloon animals for you. They're all dogs, so just shoot them without worry. For phase 3, he makes an ass of himself by riding on a literal ass that shoots unlucky horseshoes at you. Lastly, he turns into a carousel that lacks animals for you to ride on. Just keep shooting him in the face until he gets what he fucking deserves. If Disney's Aladdin came out in the 1930s, then Jimmy the Great would basically be Jafar. Without the aid of Robin Williams' genie, you must resist all temptation in picking up the treasures that he fires at you. After navigating through his cave of wonders, he shoots mummies at you from his sarcophagus. Hang on, genies aren't Egyptian. Shouldn't it be a magic lamp instead? Regardless, he goes all Pinocchio on you before showing off his phenomenal cosmic power. Shoot enough bullets and drop enough bombs on him, and you'll have him spend an eternity in an itty-bitty living space 6 feet under. You know a boss means business when many players consider Grim Matchstick to be one of the toughest adversaries in the game, even over King Dice and the Devil. Not only do you have to dodge his laser eyes, tail, and sentient fireball attacks, but you have to do it on uncertain footing. The clouds are always moving, and you have to make sure you're striking the green dragon while simultaneously staying on these clouds. Succeed, and Grim Matchstick goes King Ghidorah on you, resulting in one of the most epic moments in Cuphead. Make sure you have the high ground and lob bombs at him until you successfully slay the dragon, which is a shame because he's actually one of the few polite bosses in Cuphead, and also one of the most memorable bosses, for better or worse. If Foodie Woodpecker doesn't have a backstory, then Cuphead addresses that with Wally Warbles. In another airplane battle, where you take on what could pass as his father, you must keep your distance as you avoid his birdo eggs and temper tantrum. Knock him out of the sky, and his sci-fi fan of a son tags in for this phase of the fight. When he's out of the way, Wally Warbles still has some fight left in him and tries to fight you with pills and regurgitated garbage. Help him detoxify so that he's ripe for stuffing and serving at the next Thanksgiving dinner. Whether you like jazz or not doesn't matter to Rumor Honeybottoms. She doesn't start off the fight against you. She's royalty after all. She has her security guard attempt to escort you out, and right in the middle of a workday too. When that doesn't work, she gets her hands dirty, launching magic spells and missiles your way. And as a last-ditch effort, she transforms into a B-52 bomber, complete with buzzsaws. How can she still fly with that big body of hers? Doesn't matter after she takes enough bullets. This Pirate of the Caribbean has brought along more than a ship and a Blackbeard for this battle. He's brought along his fearsome friends from the deep. From scurvy dogs to the not-so-mighty Kraken, Captain Brinybeard keeps you on your toes with multiple attacks, all aimed for your poop deck. Endure this barrage, and his very ship will transform into a terrifying beast that will put Saiyans on notice. Sadly, you lack an iceberg, but you still have your finger bullets to stick the ship. For an Inkwell Isle 3 boss, she's actually one of the easier bosses. Sally Stageplay is an actress lacking in a buttress, but can still put up a fight if you're not careful of her. She plays out her life story for her audience, blowing kisses to the man of her dreams, getting hitched and having kids, role-playing as Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, before dying as an angel, sadly not a one-winged angel. Still, she knows who's Final Fantasy's best villain. Another relatively painless, more or less, boss fight on this island. Worman, a war veteran, starts off the fight by lobbing cherry bombs from his canned tank. When that doesn't work, he resorts to scare tactics by using a flamethrower and serrated bottle caps. But like Tom and Jerry, without the slapstick, the rat actually gets eaten by Katzenwagen. Yeah, the cat has a name! And just like the rest of this fight, it's all fake. Right there with Grim Matchstick is one of the hardest, or even the hardest boss fight in the game. Dr. Call's Iron Giant is a weapon of war to surpass Metal Gear. Laser cannons, energy waves, drones, magnets, bombs. It'll take everything you've got just to survive. Against his first wave, his second wave has him abandoning his metal body and briefly fly around the screen. After that, Dr. Wily's grandfather emerges from his metal abomination, unleashing the power of the Chaos Emerald to annihilate you. Keep your distance, mind the electric barriers, use your super art wisely, and you'll eventually become what you choose to be. Triumphant. The Betty Boop of Cuphead bosses. Kala Maria is a mermaid leviathan and a bigger bombshell than the ones you'll be dropping on her. Remember to aim for her head and not her breasts. No matter how badly you want to shoot her top off, avoid her one fish, two fish, puff fish, swordfish. After enough damage, Flotsam and Jetsam turn Ariel into Ursula. Medusa? Either way, still hot, especially as she makes you rock hard. Just button mash to break free and shoot the eels she breaches. God, I hope those are eels. Eventually, she'll do her best Venus de Milo impression. The top is still on, and float on just as ahead. Again, keep your distance, and you'll soon have her snake hair play the world's smallest violin. The last boss you'll fight if you want to get to Inkwell Hell. Remember Sally Stageplay's Kefka impression? Phantom Express takes it further by being the Phantom Train. You'll begin by popping the eyeballs from the corporeal caboose. Then you take out the conductor by shooting him in the cartilage. After that, you will blow away the pistons while avoiding their Thundaga breath attack. Finally, you fight the heart of the train by opening its burning engine and shooting it enough times until it has a heart attack. It would have been over in seconds if Sabin were here to suplex the Phantom Express, but you did pretty well yourself. When you think about the kind of boss fight that King Dice is, it would have been very easy for Studio NDHR to have decided to recycle past bosses here, but that wouldn't exactly work for the casino theme that King Dice embodies. Instead, King Dice offers one of the most unique boss fights in Cuphead, because, depending on how you roll the dice, you can fight as few as 3 or as many as 9 mini-bosses before facing off against King Dice himself. Tipsy Troop, Chips Bedigan, Mr. Wheezy, Pippin Dot, Hocus Pocus, Fairlap, Pirouetta, Mangosteen, and Mr. Chimes. This nonet of a numbers game each represent a number on the board. Land on that number with the roll of a dice, and you fight that mini-boss. You'll favor certain bosses over others, want the extra hearts that some numbers carry for you, or both. It's all in how you roll the dice. Master the dice, and not even starting over will slow you down. And when you make it to the end, King Dice's sleight of hand will send his card soldiers to fold you into submission. You can parry over these cards like normal, or if you've planned for this fight, quickly go to the far left or right of the screen and utilize the chaser weapon to deal damage. He alternates his hand placements, though, so he'll sometimes stick to the same spot. When that happens, trust your parrying, or use Super Art 2 to remain invincible. He'll know when to fold soon enough. The final boss of the game, The devil is a cunning bastard responsible for all of the pain and suffering you've most likely endured while playing this game. And in order to beat him, you'll have to endure some more torture. At least you took the easy way out. Compared to most other boss battles, the devil's arsenal of deadly attacks is broad and spontaneous. He embodies the forms of a goat, fitting, dragon, and spider with some of his attacks. He has minions running interference. His trident allows him to bring out fireballs, homing missiles, bouncing balls of death. When he's taken enough damage, the devil renounces his furry ways and commits suicide, or whatever it is he does. Dive into the hole or else burn in agony. What awaits you is another deeper level of hell. If this were an anime, then maybe that fursuit that the devil was wearing was suppressing his true power. He's enormous for the remainder of this fight. Flaming poke chips fall from the ceiling, axes spin about, ticking time bombs come out of the devil's ears like earwax, which you must parry before they detonate. After enough damage, the devil grows livid and summons some more minions which split skulls left and right. The platforms you're walking on are cut down from 5 to 3, leaving you with very little room for error. Eventually, the devil can't take your strength and begins to cry blood. At least I hope it's blood. You have only one platform to stand on, which still has poker chips rained down on, so you must time your jumps and dashes carefully. And once you see that knockout on screen, celebrate and thank whatever god exists in CUPHEAD. Could be you, actually. If the only thing deterring you from playing CUPHEAD is its difficulty, then you should still give CUPHEAD a try. It's quite literally the only game of its kind, and despite its punishing difficulty, it is still rather fair with what I've mentioned. It's all pattern recognition and quick reflexes. Don't be afraid to resort to a walkthrough to have a rough understanding of what to do. Just don't resort to cheating. You want proof that CUPHEAD's difficulty is entirely on the player? When I first played through CUPHEAD, look at my Let's Play, I died exactly 384 times, and probably restarted 3 times that. Fittingly, I struggled the most against Matchstick and Dr. Call's robot, and then against King Dice and the Devil, I died 13 times. Each. I would estimate my total playtime to be approximately 15 hours. But for the sake of this review, and because I really wanted to replay CUPHEAD, I died only 36 times, over 5 hours of playtime. Could have been 0 deaths if I cared enough about resetting for a perfect run. With no learning curve, even the hardest bosses in the game weren't particularly challenging. Matchstick fell in my first attempt because I knew exactly how to beat him, and I beat both King Dice and the Devil in under 30 minutes. If I cared enough about getting a pacifist mark on each run and gun stage, and attempting expert mode, I'd add those into this review. But all I can say about that is that they're optional accomplishments and challenges to further complement a great game. And that's exactly what CUPHEAD is. A great game that catapults 1930s music and animation into the 2010s, and does so with brutally fair gameplay and an art style that is difficult to emulate, because it is painstakingly impossible to do. CUPHEAD is practically in its own genre, until Enchanted Portals is released, assuming of course it is ever going to be released. I'll be honest, I have been tempted to back this game, despite first impressions labeling it as a CUPHEAD clone. That cow is giving me Basic Instinct vibes, and yes, I've already drawn that in 2019. Well, regardless, there are a couple of things that we can look forward to about CUPHEAD. It's getting a Netflix animated series, and it's getting DLC this year. Hopefully. Where's the lamb sauce?
Where's the lamb sauce?